Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Good afternoon. We are doing it live, getting right down to business here this afternoon. A lot to talk about, what's happening in downtown Los Angeles and indeed around the world. Mottek On Money, live on the air, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. We are out live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platform. Stocks did edge higher today as the U.S.-China trade talks happening in London moved into their second day after a positive first meeting. That was the early indication. The Dow came in for a closing gain today of 105 points, settling at 42,867. All of a sudden, the S&P 500 is near its all-time high, moving up 33 points, settling at 6,039, about 100 points off its record high, which we saw back in February. The NASDAQ moving higher by 124 points at 19,715. The yield in the 10-year note, which is being carefully watched these days, is back to 4.48%. Both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ, by the way, within striking distance of their all-time highs. The NASDAQ set a record high back in December of last year. Stocks have been pretty resilient lately on the corporate earnings news we've been getting. Also more positive growth forecasts and optimism over potential tariff deals, including this big negotiation happening right now between the U.S. and China. The mood, though, remains cautious, as we'll be discussing here in just a moment. The Chinese stocks did slide today before the meeting resumed between the U.S. and China. Volatility there suggesting investors are not confident of success, according to an investment director talking to Bloomberg today who specializes in the Chinese markets. We'll get another opinion on that here in just a moment. Meanwhile, a reading on small business confidence came in higher in the month of May, the first rise we've seen since September amid the trade truce with China, but concerns about the tariff situation continues to stoke uncertainty around the world. Investors now counting down to the release of the May Consumer Price Index report, which will be coming out tomorrow. That'll be the latest reading on the state of inflation. We did see price of oil move higher this week, pulling back a bit right now, down 29 cents at $64.69 a barrel. Of course, energy a big part of the inflation equation. The price of gold hovering around $3,342 and change. Silver, platinum, and palladium all making news recently, hitting decades highs, at least a 13-year high for the price of silver, for example. Boeing stock has taken off recently, erasing session gains today despite rising orders. Boeing shares pulling back today. The aerospace giant said it delivered more than 45 jets last month, nearly double from last year. Boeing shares have soared about 25% this year as its orders have mounted, including recent deals announced with the United Kingdom and Qatar. Checking the cryptos now, we see Bitcoin up more than 400 at 109,959. Ethereum hovering at around 2806. Doge at the moment at 19 cents. Here's another name from the past that's been making news lately. IBM moving higher today after what is now a cloud software and network infrastructure company announced it's building the world's first large-scale quantum computer called Starling, which will be capable of operating without errors. At least that's what they're saying. That remains to be seen. And shares of J.M. Smucker moving lower today after the food producer forecast full-year profit below what Wall Street analysts were expecting. OpenAI's 400 million ChatGPT users experiencing elevated error rates today worldwide, according to the company's status page. Looks like ChatGPT was down for a time and might still be down in some places, according to downdetector.com. That's the website that tracks online service issues. The National Guard and U.S. Marines in Los Angeles helping to restore and maintain security and order in downtown L.A., where violent protests against federal immigration law enforcement for the past several days have put the spotlight on L.A. Anti-ICE protests began in L.A. on Friday following increased ICE enforcement actions here. I'll discuss those latest actions with Ira Melman, spokesman for FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform. Also this hour, I'll talk about what's happening with Supervisor Janet Nguyen, who's currently on the Orange County Board of Supervisors. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy. Joining us live now, money manager GABRIEL Wisdom, managing director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. GABRIEL Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. You know, the initial shock over tariffs has clearly dissipated, or at least we've become somewhat numb to the whole tariff rhetoric. In fact, we could say that we're experiencing a new version of trickle-down economics, because the impact of these tariffs is likely to trickle down when we get the consumer price index picture tomorrow. That'll give us May's consumer price inflation. And there's a pretty much universal expectation that the tariffs will, to some extent, affect the consumer price index and mean lower inflation. On that idea, the World Bank released a report that said that the tariffs could cut U.S. economic growth in half, in one half this year. The Federal Reserve is on the spot here to reduce rates, but based on the tea leaves and the Fed governors that I'm reading, they're not declaring victory on inflation so far. But the market's near an all-time high again, so the market's looking out over the next 6 months. Looks pretty good, Frank.
On there live with money manager GABRIEL Wisdom, and a lot riding on these talks happening in London now between the U.S. and China on trade. There was a big China-California business forum last week, which I attended, and certainly a lot of robust trade has happened between California and China, and the hope is that it will continue to be robust, even though the port activity, we're told, has trickled to a halt here. So a lot riding on what's happening with these talks at the moment, and the early indications right now that they've been positive. So you think we might be setting ourselves up for another rally here if we get any good news from this big meeting happening this week?
I believe that's, but certainly my view, China has been preparing for a trade war for quite some time. They're used to this, that China's main customer is the bloc of 10 countries in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And then that would be followed by the European Union. So the U.S. is really only China's number 3 market. Very, very important, clearly. And to a large extent, it's because of the rare earth minerals. China has one thing the U.S. really lacks, and that's the rare earth special minerals that China mines about 70% of the world's so-called rare earth minerals. And there's growing concern that auto manufacturers around the world are going to have to pause production because they're not getting enough of these minerals. Those minerals are responsible for making magnets and other materials that are critical components to auto manufacturing.
All right, Microsoft has been making news lately as the most valuable company in the world. NVIDIA briefly took that crown in the last week or so. NVIDIA has certainly seen a wild ride and an impressive rebound since that low we hit earlier in the year. What about those two names and the rest of the Mag 7 names, which does not include Tesla anymore, which also saw a rebound today here? Broadcom has replaced Tesla on the list of the Mag 7.
Well, Microsoft's doing everything right. They have a commanding lead on AI, being the broker of record, basically, in the middle with that contract with OpenAI. Cloud computing is another very strong area for Microsoft. It still looks appealing to me, and the market says it's worth well over $3 trillion. NVIDIA made a deal, we just saw it today, with Hewlett-Packard Enterprises, the old Hewlett-Packard. They're partnering for a new supercomputer that will use NVIDIA's next generation chips. It's being called the Blue Lion supercomputer. They announced this at a conference in Hamburg, Germany. And one of the little twists from NVIDIA is something called climate in a bottle. This is remarkable. It's a artificial intelligence model that forecasts the weather, not just for next week. It can forecast weather for 10 to 30 years in the future. to see what the weather may be like. The future is rapidly approaching.
Well, can economists and stock analysts use this tool as well?
I don't know. If we can, you can be sure I'll be at the front of the line, or I'll try to be.
The old joke is they have economists to make meteorologists look good. So that's something that we've heard in the past, and whether that's still true or not remains to be seen. Certainly, it's interesting to hear about all these new tools. Now, I know you watch what's happening with crypto, and as our listeners know, we talk to the biggest fans of crypto here, as well as the harshest critics, and those who are the observers. Bitcoin has held up pretty well these days, still hovering near its all-time high, close to 110,000 here at the moment. Gabriel Wisdom, hard to ignore what's happening in the crypto world here.
It is very hard to ignore, and Bitcoin is the brand. There's no question about it. Public companies have been increasing their exposure to Bitcoin. In fact, a number of these companies are the traditional old line firms that you'd be surprised might want to own some Bitcoin. They're involved in oil services, retail, you name it, because everybody wants to get on board. And speaking of getting on board, now the big banks want in on the crypto stable coin. These are the cryptocurrencies that are backed by the U.S. dollar or treasuries, and they're supposed to maintain a 1-to-1 ratio with the dollar. And so we've got Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, all discussing whether to work jointly to issue a stable coin to beat back all this competition. At the same time, crypto firms like Coinbase are considering applying for bank charters with the Federal Reserve. Interesting how crypto was supposed to be decentralized. We've come 180 degrees now. It's mainstream.
What is your view of the banks? We're seeing some signs recently, some reports of rising default risks, and some banks preparing for additional default risk based on some of the reports we've seen recently. What about the bank stocks and the banks overall at the moment?
I think the banks are, in the aggregate, Frank, they're still attractively valued. They haven't participated because in the more recent rally because of these concerns. And it's clear that the Federal Reserve isn't sure about reducing interest rates. Now, it is true that higher rates can benefit the banks. Certainly the big money center banks get a bigger spread. They make a little wider profit margin. Money market funds, which are big profit centers for the nation's brokerage firms and banks, those do well when interest rates are higher because they can charge their management fee. We saw, a number of Fed officials chime in just in the last few days in South Korea. Last week, Fed Reserve Governor Christopher Waller said that the considerable uncertainty about where trade policy is going to settle tells him to leave things alone. Then we heard from Fed Governor Lisa Cook. She told a group in New York that she supported the FOMC's decision to leave interest rates unchanged. And then your old friend, Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, told reporters that there's still a ways to go in terms of the progress that we're going to need to see, and he is not declaring victory on inflation. So my bet is interest rates stay higher, but if the banks get into trouble, you can be sure the Fed will come to the rescue. So for that reason, I think the banks are a pretty safe bet.
Well, thanks for taking that question. And you got a good memory. Raphael Bostic used to be a USC professor right here in Los Angeles and has been the president of the Atlanta Federal Reserve for many, many years now. During the financial crisis, we had Raphael Bostic on the show many times back during those days, during the mortgage meltdown and so forth. What about some of the other water cooler names, let's call it Apple, which had that big event just yesterday, and apparently it was a dud, as seems to be a lot of the write-ups say, and Tesla, of course, has been wild lately, and right now hovering at around 326. We'll pull up the Apple quote here in just a moment, but what about those two high-profile names?
Frank, Apple continues to be Warren Buffett's biggest holding in Berkshire Hathaway. It's about 23% of the portfolio. It's about 21% The other 2 to 2.5% is in Amazon. But Apple, is a very strong idea for two reasons. First of all, it's a global leader in smartphone sales. Everybody knows this. They've got a huge brand moat that affords them to raise prices. And then secondly, and last month, Apple announced that their intelligence large language models are being outsourced to third-party developers, and that doing this would bring a wave of AI-powered applications to their app store. They seem to be doing all things right, but the market doesn't recognize it. On the other hand, Tesla is getting a reprieve, but let's not forget that BYD in China has a new platform for electric vehicles that it said could charge EVs as quickly as it takes to pump gas. The big plus for Tesla right now is the robo-taxi, which is set to roll out beginning in Austin, Texas.
On the air live with Gabriel Wisdom, and turning to the metals here, we see gold at $3,342 an ounce. It'll be interesting to see if the metals react to the inflation number that's coming out tomorrow. Silver at a 13-year high, close to $37 an ounce now at $36.68. We see platinum cracking 1,200 at 1,220 and change here, and palladium, which we don't often talk about, also moving higher lately at 1,077 and change here at the moment. What are your thoughts about the move in the metals lately, and where do you see these go from here?
Frank, I do like them all. I have for some time, as you know. Copper, as I've heard you say, is the one metal with a PhD in economics. It is a pretty good barometer of future economic activity. It's certainly the lifeblood of progress. Now, copper has been reasonably strong, even though China, which is the biggest producer of copper, has slowed production. And that's because of the data centers and the AI build-out. Palladium, too, has been depressed for a long time. It's used in gas-powered vehicles, but it's also essential in hybrids. And hybrid vehicles are far more popular with consumers than just pure EVs. So with palladium, it's very efficient in lower temperatures or cooler engines like the hybrid. I think it's very exciting what's going on with the metals vis-a-vis the digital revolution that's underway.
All right, before I let you off the hook here and let you get on with the rest of the day, any specific places where you're putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Our dependence on China for rare earth minerals is a real concern. We need to find a path beyond our dependence on China for these minerals. And so there are some recommendations that recycling programs of government-owned products that have rare earth or magnets in them would be very, very helpful, maybe even solve the problem. Waste management, I'm looking at WM. They're a major player. Republic Services, symbol RSG, is another one. They're actually the largest recycler in the United States. And then Waste Connections, WCN. They're opening centers using AI-powered sorting of solutions to find these minerals. It's brilliant.
Terrific. Gabriel, thank you very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon. That is Money Manager Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management, author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC, a winning day for the stock market as the trade talks continue between the U.S. and China, happening in London this week. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 105 points, selling at 42,867. The S&P 500 of 33 at 6,039. The S&P 500 just about 100 points below its all-time high. And the Nasdaq popping 124 points today at 19,715. That index, too, near its all-time high. Gold right now hovering at 3,342 and change. Silver at 3,668. Platinum at 1,220 and change. And palladium at 1,077.50. Checking the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin up about 400 at 109,959. Ethereum of 31 at 2806. Doge at the moment at 19 cents. And Solana now at 164. Tesla popping nearly $18 to 326 and change. We see Microsoft pulling back nearly 2 at $4.70 and change. NVIDIA up $1.33 today to $143 and change. And now the latest news on 790 KABC.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
I am Michael Rosenbaum.
I am Tom Welling.
Welcome to Talkville,
where it's fun to talk about Smallville.
We're going to be talking to sometimes guest stars.
Are you liking the direction Lois is going in?
Yeah, because I'm getting more screen time.
It's good.
But mostly it's just me and Tom remembering.
I think we all feel like there was a scene missing here.
You got me, Tom.
Let's revisit it. Let's look at it. See what we remember.
See what we remember.
I had never been around anything like that before. I mean, it was so fun.
Talkville.
Talkville.
I just had a flashback.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Let's get into it.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Stay tuned to 790 KBC for the very latest on what's happening in downtown Los Angeles. The fallout continuing after days of protest against the government gripping the Los Angeles area, especially in downtown L.A. Hundreds of people gathered once again near the Federal Building in downtown Los Angeles for a fourth day of protest, and things remained mostly peaceful and calm through the day before several stores were looted last night. Authorities said some arrests were made. Looks like there are protests happening right now, and the LAPD is detaining protesters in the downtown Los Angeles area this afternoon. Meanwhile, police declared unlawful assembly at another protest in Orange County, where about 200 people were seen protesting on Santa Ana Boulevard and Flower Street in front of a federal building there. Authorities said at least 10 people were arrested. We'll be speaking live with an Orange County supervisor coming up here later this hour. Heated exchanges between local, state, and federal politicians, meanwhile, continued. The National Guard and U.S. Marines now in Los Angeles helping to restore and maintain security and order in downtown L.A., where violent protests against federal immigration law enforcement has been happening for the past several days. Anti-ICE protests began in Los Angeles on a Friday following increased ICE enforcement action in the City of Angels. Los Angeles now getting worldwide attention on the issue of immigration and everything that's happening. And joining us live now is Ira MELMAN, spokesman for FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, has been focused on immigration for many, many years. Ira, thank you very much for coming back to the line here this afternoon.
My pleasure. Good to be back.
Wonderful to have you with us here. And take it from the top. Give us your view of what's happening here in Los Angeles.
Well, what we're seeing is an insurrection. You know, this has all the earmarks of what we've seen over the past few years, where, you know, it started with the 2020 insurrections after, you know, the Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd. We've seen this on college campuses. These are organized efforts on the part of people who really want to create instability in our society. And they were just looking for a casus belli, a trigger to get everybody out on the streets, to start what we're seeing right now on the streets of Los Angeles. The federal government has an absolute right to enforce the immigration laws in the United States anywhere in the country, including in Los Angeles. Governor Newsom may not like it, Mayor Bass may not like it, but they have a right to go ahead and enforce the laws of this country. If the mayor and the governor don't want to assist, and they probably should because ICE is going after criminals in those communities, they at least ought to be able to stand back, let the federal government do its job, and actually enforce the laws of the city. When people are rioting, when they're throwing bricks, when they're setting fires, they are violating city and state laws as well, and the city and state have an obligation to step in.
We're seeing a protest disrupting traffic on the 101 freeway this afternoon on what is now day 5 of these demonstrations and violent outbursts and indeed flat-out looting of some stores in the downtown Los Angeles area. Absolutely heartbreaking to see the Apple store on Broadway, that beautiful store, being looted along with other stores in the downtown Los Angeles core, which, of course, is being condemned by all of the business groups here in the Los Angeles area. And yet relatively few arrests in all this. What about that component? And you think we're going to see the troops here assist in getting these people off the streets?
Well, first of all, the fact that there aren't many arrests is an indication that the government officials in California are looking the other way, and we've seen this play out many times before. When people realize that there are not going to be consequences for this sort of behavior, they continue to escalate. Look, I mean, it is up to Mayor Bass. It's her city. She commands the LAPD. When people are violating laws of the city, when they are creating destruction, destroying businesses, threatening the lives and the convenience of people of the city, she needs to step up. She needs to order the LAPD to go out there and do the job. She can deal with her differences with the federal government at another time, but right now her first obligation is to restore order in Los Angeles. The same is true of Governor Newsom. But apparently if they are not making the arrests that are necessary, they're not sending the signal to people that they're serious about enforcing the laws of the city and the state.
Give us some insight here on who is actually who is ICE going after at this point. We've been hearing all kinds of stories about this, but it's my understanding they're going after the hardcore criminals, right?
That's right. They're going after gang members, people with criminal records, and very serious criminal records, some of them. And part of this is due to the fact that California's sanctuary policies result in these people being released back into the community. And Tom Homan has said very clearly, if you make us go out into the community and find the people that we are looking to deport, and these are the criminals, and we happen to stumble on other people who are in the country illegally that may not have been on our radar scope, we're going to take them as well. Look, I mean, nobody wants criminals in the community. It boggles the imagination that you would have state and local officials saying, no, we don't want to cooperate, and you removing criminals from our communities. And yet that is what happens and what has been happening on a regular basis in California for quite some time.
Years ago, there was a gang injunction here in Los Angeles under the former L.A. city attorney and then Mayor James Hahn. I don't know if you remember those days, but at one point, the city of Los Angeles went after some gangs specifically in a very, very big way. I don't know if you recall that, but I'm not sure what the immigration situation was at that time, but it appears to have been a component then as well.
It was, look, obviously it's in the interest of the city to get rid of the gangs, whether if they're doing it by putting people on trial and sending them to prison, or whether they're doing it because ICE comes in and takes them and removes them from the country. The net effect on the city is the same. It makes the community safer. It protects the people of Los Angeles. Look, I mean, it has gotten to a point ideologically in California where they simply refuse to enforce immigration laws, even when not enforcing our immigration laws threatens the safety of people in those communities.
You've been doing this for a long time, but where does FAIR stand at this point on the immigration reform? What does immigration reform even mean these days?
Well, look, I mean, we have seen over the past few months that our borders have been secured, that we're now seeing that ICE is going out and starting to remove people who are in the country illegally. But we also need to address issues like sanctuary policies that just create the atmosphere where these gangs and criminals can thrive, knowing that, you're going to have local governments protect them from ICE and removal from the country. So we have so many things to do, but it starts with just basic common sense that the first priority should be protecting the interests of the American public.
On the air live with Ira Melman, who is the spokesman for FAIR, a longtime immigration reform advocate. The organization FAIR is the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Is there anything moving in Washington to address immigration reform at the moment?
Well, the reconciliation bill includes a lot of funding for some enforcement measures, but that you can get done through the budget process without getting to the 60 votes necessary in the Senate. The real heavy lifting is going to come after that. Changes in policies that are needed to give us greater authority to prevent people from coming into the country illegally, greater leeway to prevent people from collecting benefits and other services in this country if they're here illegally. What they really need to focus on are those kinds of policy changes that make it clear to people that you're not going to improve your life significantly by coming to the United States and living here illegally, that we're not going to just tolerate the sort of thing that we saw go on for the past 4 years. That is going to take a lot more effort, but at least now we have a secure border. We have the beginnings of an effort to remove people from the country who came here illegally. And look, I mean, Los Angeles is kind of an anomaly here, where you have the local officials who are just dead set against it. But the rest of the country is kind of moving along, getting behind the effort to enforce these laws.
So this is high drama playing out here again in downtown Los Angeles with the LAPD detaining protesters downtown. Looks like part of the 101 through the downtown area is being affected by what's happening in downtown Los Angeles this afternoon. I wish we had more time, but we'll have to stop there and look forward to speaking with you as this drama continues to play out. That's Ira Melman, spokesman for FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, live with us here on 790 KBC.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal!
Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot. Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot from distance. What a goal! Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan.
Can he finish? Yes, he can! Yeah! The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. High drama in downtown Los Angeles again this afternoon. Protesters have been detained after blocking the 101 freeway. A lot of police presence in downtown Los Angeles, along with the National Guard and U.S. Marines reported to be in Los Angeles as well, helping to restore and maintain security and order in the downtown Los Angeles area, where violent protests against federal immigration law enforcement been happening for the past several days, 5 days to be precise, in Orange County as well. There have been some incidents, too. Police had to declare an unlawful assembly at another protest in Orange County. About 200 people were seen protesting on Santa Ana Boulevard and Flower Street in front of a federal building, and about 10 people were arrested there. Let's get an update now on what's happening in the OC. Joining us live now is Orange County Supervisor Janet Nguyen, who previously served in the California State Senate and California State Assembly. Supervisor Nguyen, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank, for having me.
First of all, tell us what's happening there in the OC. Are there protests there, and what is the situation?
Yeah, so earlier there was roughly about 50 people protesting. There were seen some Trump folks there as well, so they were going back and forth. I know that a lot of the buildings, especially the federal government, it's now been boarded, were vandalized last night. So was the county buildings. They were vandalized as well. Businesses were vandalized last night also. We're expecting a larger crowd later today. There is a press conference. It might have just ended at around 4 o'clock with some of the local elected officials in the city of Santa Ana. And that's, so we're ready. I want to thank our law enforcement, Santa Ana, particularly Santa Ana, the National Guard, the Sheriff Department, a lot of the mutual aid from a lot of the cities, Garden Grove, Huntington Beach, Anaheim, et cetera, last night for all coming in and helping and making sure that it's peaceful. Look, I mean, Frank, as you know, my family escaped communism, and so I'm a big fan of the First Amendment rights. And so I'm asking people look, you have the right to peacefully protest and make your opinions heard. Because I'll tell you, where I came from, you would be arrested in Vietnam if you were to do this. We're in America. We want you to make sure that you have the ability to protest and voice your opinion. However, it is not your right to be violent, to vandalize, or to harm our law enforcement either. So come in, respect the area, respect the businesses, do it, make your voices heard, but make sure that you keep it peaceful, because that's what we want. And that's what we want you to have a peaceful protest.
On the air live with Orange County Supervisor Janet Nguyen. What's happening in downtown, of course, getting most of the media attention on the major channels here. But we want to certainly understand and want to know what's going on there in Orange County. So we have National Guard troops there in the OC as well, bolstering the local police there?
Yes, they've been here since yesterday.
Well, that's very important news. What about the U.S. Marines? Have you seen any Marines there as well?
We haven't seen any Marines. We were told, though, the Marines are being based. Wasn't told. I read in one of the posts that the Marines are being based in Seal Beach, and that's also in my district. Seal Beach has a naval weapon base, and so the Marines are being deployed there and are waiting to go out when needed to.
All right, and at this point, what are the folks saying there? What is your assessment here for Orange County? Does Orange County have enough police presence and power there to deal with what you're seeing there on the streets?
From what we saw last night, yes. Our sheriff department is on it. The Santa Ana Police Department is on it, and lots of the city surrounding is helping in mutual aid. And so we believe that we are in a good position. And again, that's why last night we got, minimum. I mean, it's vandalism, but it's not what you see in LA. So we've been able to have a peaceful, somewhat to some extent, in Santa Ana last night. So we're hoping that it doesn't get escalated today.
What is your message to the looters and others out there who are going to try to take advantage of the situation there, as we saw in downtown Los Angeles with stores just being looted again last night?
Don't do it. Violence is not what you're allowed to do. We will hold everybody accountable. You're allowed to go ahead and peacefully protest. Vandalizing government buildings, which is really the taxpayers who's going to be on the hook to have to fix the building, and also harming our small businesses in the area is not the right thing to do. And I also want to make sure that, we don't also in any way harm our law enforcement who is there to do their job. And so go ahead and protest, make your voices heard. Violence is not where you want to go.
All right. And what do you make of the locking of horns now between Governor Newsom and President Trump? You previously served as a Republican in the California State Senate and California State Assembly, and now California's also trying to block the Trump administration from some of the recent actions. Give us your reaction to that part of the story here.
It's nothing new. Governor Newsom does not like Trump. Everybody knows he also wants to be the president of the United States. So it's nothing new. And unfortunately, what's happening right now in California, it's in his hand. He could have controlled this. He could have made sure this doesn't go further. But unfortunately, Governor Newsom is not stepping in, so local government and the federal government has to step in.
All right. And I think last time we spoke, I think you were in the state legislature and talking about the AQMD board. It looks like it's defeated the mandate to phase out gas heaters now. Any reaction to that?
Oh, very exciting. Huge victory, Frank, for all of us. AQMD, I'm now a representative on AQMD to represent Orange County. We won. For the first time in over 25 years, the people have voted down a ruling that would have imposed harmful mandate for 17 million people in 4 counties. So last Friday, we had a vote. There were, almost 200 in-person speakers and about almost 100 folks called in to speak on the item, 6-hour deliberation and hearing. The measure ended up being defeated by 7-5.
Supervisor, thank you very much for that important update, and congratulations on that. We'll keep an open line to you for all things OC. That is Orange County Supervisor Janet Nguyen, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz. I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek On Money, 790 KBC.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal!
Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot.
Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot for distance. What a goal!
Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan.
Can he finish? Yes, he can!
Yeah! The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.